Welcome back to Through the Trapdoor. I'm Katie.
I'm Emily.
And this is our Harry Potter fanfiction podcast. We are super excited about it.
Alright, so this week
we're starting our first full fanfiction that we're going to read to you guys. It is 13 chapters. We don't know how many chapters we're going to do an episode. Kind of depends on the episode length and the chapter length. What we're going for.
Yeah, we'll see.
But this one is really fun. We've both read it through the whole time, so let's hope this goes well. But we never know. Please bear with us. But it's called A New Leaf to Turn. And chapter 1 is A Very Normal Life. Here we go. Dudley Dursley would be the first to tell you that he lived a very normal life. He had a good job, a small home in a quiet neighborhood that reminded him of home, a loving wife, and wonderful children. The thought of his family always brought a smile to his face, even as he was driving home from a long day at work. Even if his job was stressed or things weren't going right, Dudley could always count on his drive home to lift his spirits as he thought of his perfectly normal life. Such was the exact frame of mind that Dudley Dursley found himself in as he got into his car after work. It was late, having stayed at the high school he taught at to help coach the boxing team in preparation for the next big match. He was tired. As he started the engine, he looked out the car window to see some of his students leave the school, some driving, some being picked up by parents. Dudley couldn't help but chuckle. There had been a time when he thought being a parent seemed absurd to him. He was still chuckling to himself as he pulled out of the parking lot when he reminded himself how he thought he would never, ever get married. But here he was, happily married for 15 years, and a proud father of two wonderful children, the perfect amount in his opinion. Then again, he could be biased. Why, you were an only child, Dudley.
Yeah.
How are you biased? You were an only child. I mean, yeah, Harry was there, but let's be real. He was definitely neglected his whole life.
I think he means he is biased because they're his children. So he feels like the two of them
is the perfect amount.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense because, he is kind of a dick.
Yes.
He was kind of a dick.
He seems pretty normal now.
Right. I mean, he teaches high school boxing, which, honestly, high school students suck.
Yeah. True.
I mean, if we've learned anything from reading the original Harry Potter series, they definitely don't listen to rules.
Very true.
Definitely don't listen to...
Don't go into the Forbidden Forest. What? There's a forest?
Full of creatures?
Let's go in it right now.
Also, but let's be real, they sent second years into the Forbidden Forest for detention.
I know, I don't understand.
I'm gonna punish you. Go hunt for a broken unicorn.
Why is that your punishment?
How is that a punishment, first of all?
True. Go into the place that is forbidden and look around for a while.
Right, also with your best friend Hagrid.
Yes, also take Hagrid and his cute dog.
Right, I guess the only punishment was Draco was there.
You also had to take Draco, your mortal enemy.
Who is terrified.
Who's being very scared of everything right now.
Alright. The perfect amount in his opinion. But then again, he could be biased. And of course, he had the cliche white picket house in a quiet neighborhood that reminded him of home growing up. It was ordinary, but Dudley liked ordinary. He liked being ordinary. Being is in italics, just so you know. It's very important that you know he likes being ordinary.
Very specific.
I love when fanfiction writers do that, so I know how important it is.
Yeah. It makes it easier to, envision.
How he, I could picture him in his car, I made a hand movement. I know this is an audio platform. Just making hand movements. I'm being ordinary, and I like it. He didn't mind having a normal life, because had you asked him 19 years previously, he might have told you his life was anything but normal. Because 19 years previously, he had been rushed out of his house in a panic due to a war no one in his world knew about it. A war that was centered around his cousin Harry Potter.
Dun dun dun.
We've gotten to the juice. Dudley blinked. He hadn't thought about his cousin in years. Had it really been 19 years since he last saw Harry? It must have been. The last memory of the green-eyed boy had been when Dudley had offered a feeble apology to his cousin for the years of torment he had given to me. That has to be my least favorite fanfiction thingamajig, is when people describe other people by their eye color. Or by any random defining trait like that. Like, I know who Harry Potter is. I searched for Harry Potter fanfiction. You don't have to remind me that he has Lily's eyes. I got enough of that in the regular series.
I feel like that's why they bring it up a lot of the time, though, is because it's so, like, you have your mother's eyes. I would hate to be defined as that. Like, how, like, defining were just her eyes? Like, I feel like unless your eyes are, like, something super bizarre, I'm not going to define you or your children by your eyes.
Right. He just had green eyes. I get it. He looked, you're the spitting image of James, except for your eyes. You have your mother's eyes. Were James's eyes that boring? Because green eyes are hard to get.
Yeah. You genetically both either have to have green or, like, blue eyes.
To come up with green.
Yeah.
But they never
Where
really
we
told
both
us.
sit here with, like, a green shade.
I know. But I know a little bit about recessive genes. Thank you. Hair.
Ginger.
I am a ginger. It's fine. I love it. I embrace it. It's who I am as a person. Where was I? Oh, a feeble apology. The years of torment he had given him. A chill went down Dudley's spine. All those years that he had been spoiled by his parents and bullying smaller children, Harry had been successfully saving the world, not once, but several times.
Says selfishly.
Let me retry that, because I said the wrong word.
Normally, it's not a big deal, but selflessly and
successfully are very different words.
I mean, he was successful. It's not quite the same sentence.
I'm going to try that again. A chill went down Dudley's spine at the thought. All those years, he had been spoiled by his parents and bullying smaller children. Harry had been selflessly saving the world, not once, but several times. Even while his aunt and uncle, Dudley's own parents, had belittled and tried to beat out his magical powers, Harry still cared enough to worry about their safety, even saving Dudley's life when they were 15. Gripping the steering wheel tightly, Dudley tried not to dwell on the actual event of almost having his soul drained. The event was horrific and traumatizing, but he did have to admit that in that horrible night, that Dudley's life had changed forever. Before that night, he was a spoiled bully who gained weight faster than a drag racer gained speed. But after that night, Dudley saw who he was and was disgusted with himself. And it was then that he began to see his smaller cousin in the light he deserved. He had saved his life just minutes after Dudley had tormented him about his nightmares that he had been plagued with. Before that night, Dudley could have never comprehended such selflessness, such courage, and he knew he needed to change. Change had been slow at first because Dudley had no idea where to start. But his starting point, at least in his mind, had come from letting his cousin know that he was grateful. That moment had let him let go of who he was, and slowly but surely he was able to gain momentum in changing who he was. The first being his weight. At this thought, Dudley couldn't help but laugh outright. Oh, I forgot he's still driving home from work.
Yes.
This is all happening in his head.
In his head, in his car. We've all had thoughts like this.
I guess I've made all my major life decisions while having arguments with myself in my car. Or talking to myself in my car.
Yeah. Or the shower.
Yeah. Major life decisions. Driving home from work or to work. Or, well, in the shower washing your hair.
Yep.
If you're a girl. If you're a guy, I don't know. Your showers are too short to make life decisions.
It's while they're pooping.
Ah. All right. At this thought, Dudley couldn't help but laugh outright. It had been the first thing he had done at university, joined the cross-country team. And ironically, he, in turn, had been teased for his size. It reminded him of how much he had tormented Harry, and this gave him that much more incentive to try harder and prove that he could change. The thought of Harry had pushed Dudley to the point that by his sophomore year, he not only could see his belt buckle, but he could touch his toes, which is hard to do.
It is.
If you've got tight hamstrings, you can't do it.
I can't.
He could run a 6-minute mile. Also can't do that. You'd be lucky if I, walk a mile in 20 minutes.
I'd probably just die.
Not to mention, get a steady girlfriend.
Ooh.
Way to go, Dudley! As he took a turn from the main road, Dudley smiled. Diane was everything he wanted in a woman. Beautiful, sweet, witty, and best of all, could cook better than his mom.
Good life goal.
Not that he would ever tell his mom such a thing was possible. In parentheses, so you know it's in his head. Even though I'm pretty sure this entire thing is in his head.
Even though everything else is also in his head.
That's just some Inception stuff going on. It surprised him when she accepted his invitation to dinner one night, and from then on, they hit it off. By his junior year, his parents had insisted that Diane call them Mum and Dad, and by his senior year, both his parents and her parents were hinting that he should propose. And being the gentleman that he recently shaped himself to be...
It's great. I love that.
Yes, because he wasn't before, now he is. Love it. Dudley, this is some character development.
Love it.
The night after graduation, he took Diane to their favorite restaurant and proposed, on one knee, with her father's blessing to the love of his life.
Aww.
So sweet. See, I love that. I'm all about, yeah, but, ask my dad. I know mine asked my dad, yours did. Mm-hmm. It's just polite.
It is.
The wedding was scarcely a year later, and it was shortly after their 4th wedding anniversary that Dudley had the second happiest day of his life. His son, William, was born. Way to name him after a Weasley.
I don't think that was intentional.
Yeah, but still. Although...
It's not like Harry. Albus Severus Dumbledore.
I know, he just unintentionally named him William. But, next sentence, doesn't call him Bill. Will was the spitting image of his father, but thankfully, due to Diane's insight on food, she was a dietitian at the local hospital. Dudley's girth as a child was nowhere to be found on William. Well, thank God, because you were just a little beach ball with a wig.
That's how you're described in the book, actually.
Yeah. Oh my God, it is, isn't it? Huh. As the boy grew, Dudley was happy to see how much of his mother was in William. He was selfless, even if he had a habit of getting into trouble. Sounds a lot like Harry.
Yep.
Sounds like your son is Harry.
LOL, you just had your cousin.
Once, Dudley had been called from work because Williams had set fire to the teacher's toupee in the middle of a lecture, and Dudley needed to pick him up from school. Although Will would argue that he did no such thing to the teacher, even though he was mad at the teacher for punishing for wearing the wrong colored socks.
It's a weird thing to punish him for.
I don't know. Private school is weird.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, private school.
Dudley was seeing less and less office building now, and more houses, as he made his way into the neighborhoods. He watched some small children play in their front yards, and he couldn't help but smile at the thought of Marigold, his youngest. William had been 2 years old when Marigold was born. Unlike when William had been born, Dudley was almost scared to find that he had a daughter. He knew what to expect with a son. He had been one himself, but a daughter? Dudley had no sisters or even a female cousin, so the idea of raising a little girl had him intimidated. I can understand that, but you have a wife whom seems very supportive.
Yeah, she was very confident.
Although all we know about her is she cooks real well.
And she's a dietitian.
Yeah, so I guess we'll find out. But when he had little Mari for the first time, the fear and what ifs melted away, and he knew that he could and would raise this girl to be the type of woman her mother was. And after 9 years, he would like to think he was doing a good job of doing so. Spirits lifted and not so tired anymore, Dudley pulled into the driveway of number 16 Chestnut Avenue. I would live on Chestnut Avenue. That sounds like a great address.
It does.
The house was quaint, not too big, not too small, just right for their sized family.
Did you also have 3 bears living in the neighborhood?
I know, it sounds like Goldilocks over here. Did you have porridge for dinner? But this chair was just right.
Oh, goodness.
The grass was green and trimly cut, as Dudley mowed it every Saturday. That is too often.
Yeah, you shouldn't mow your grass that often.
It's gonna get burnt real quick.
Even if it rains every day like it has been here.
And the white picket fence added a sweet touch, even if it was a little cliche, he thought as he got out of the car and walked through the front door. Honey, kids, I'm home! Dudley was greeted by the sound of footsteps, gaining speed down the hall towards him. Couldn't be too far now, he braced himself for impact. Daddy! Marigold shouted as she took a flying leap into her father's arms, giggling. Hi, Pumpkin. Dudley was positively grinning now, setting Mari down as William came into view. Hi, Dad. Practice run late tonight? The blonde boy asked, looking up at his dad. Dudley could tell that there could be a chance that William could take up Dudley's interest in boxing, but time could only tell. Dudley chuckled. Yeah, you know how it is. We have a big match against Smeltings coming up. The older blonde could appreciate the irony of his statement, even if his children couldn't. Diane made her way into the hall as Dudley set Mari down onto the floor. I thought you already set Mari down.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Setting Mari down, yeah.
Okay.
He's now set her down twice.
Okay, cool. Did he pick her? He picked her back up again. And try as he might, he couldn't help but take a few moments to just look at his wife. Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
That's sweet.
Very sweet.
Surely she wasn't as thin as she was in her university years, but Dudley would never falter on that. She did carry his 2 children for 9 months each, plus he liked the slight curve she had on her hips, even if she didn't. Her face did have a few wrinkles, but they weren't from worry or stress, but from laughing and smiling. He thought he saw a gray hair or 2, but this he would never tell his wife.
Mm-mm.
No, never
Nope.
point out a gray hair. Bad.
Keep that inside.
Keep it inside always. Ever. Good job. He could also tell from her flushed face as well as the flour on her hands and her shirt that she had spent her day off in a hot kitchen making a wonderful dinner. She was beautiful. Stop staring at me and come over here, you loon, Diane laughed, hugging her husband. Dudley smiled before kissing her cheek. You're beautiful, he whispered. You're mental, she replied. Going back to their dining room to serve dinner, Dudley smiled and followed his wife and children to dinner. Yes, Dudley Dursley had a very normal life. Done.
The end of chapter 1.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.
A nice one. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Through The Trapdoor 16 and on our Twitter at The Trapdoor 16.
Because Through the Trapdoor was too long for Twitter.
Yep.
And you can email us at throughthetrapdoor16@gmail.com with any story suggestions, or if there's anything you think that we need to see, whether it's a meme or another fan fiction, or if you have anything to say to us.
Bye.
Bye.